The power of silence. Transform your life. The strength in silence. Hey there, welcome back to the Stoic Path. Today, we're diving into something that can completely change the way you handle relationships, self-respect, and personal growth. Have you ever wondered what truly haunts a person? It's not the words they never heard. It's the silence they never expected. They thought you'd always be there. They thought no matter how many times they push you away, you'd fight harder to prove your worth. They believed your love was a guarantee, something they could lose, walk away from, and still find waiting when they decided to come back. But what they never prepared for was your silence, because silence is the one thing they can't control. And today, I'll show you exactly why your silence is more powerful than any words you could ever say. This is about games. This isn't about revenge. This is about reclaiming your power, reprogramming your mind, and rebuilding your self-worth. If you've ever questioned whether your silence is making a difference, by the end of this video, you'll understand why it's the most powerful response you'll ever give. Let's get started. Part 1. Why silence hurts more than words. Silence is the one language the human mind can't ignore. Words, they can be debated, twisted, or blocked out. But silence forces a person to sit with themselves. And that is where the real battle begins. When someone expects you to chase them, your silence isn't just confusing, it's painful. Why? Because what they really wanted was to feel important enough to trigger your reaction. They expected anger. They expected long explanations. They expected you to fight for their attention one last time. But what they never expected was for you to do nothing. And that's what breaks them. Because silence doesn't feed their ego, it starves it. It forces them to face a truth they've been running from. Maybe you weren't the weak one. Maybe they were the ones being tolerated. Maybe they were the ones who lost someone who would have loved them forever. They thought they broke you by leaving. But your silence is breaking them in ways they'll never admit out loud. And that's because silence creates doubt. And doubt, that's the slowest, most painful poison to the human mind. Part 2. The hidden stages they go through. Your silence isn't just something they notice. It's something they feel. And what most people don't realize is that silence doesn't hit them all at once. It breaks them down stage by stage. Stage 1, relief. At first, they convince themselves you're just playing hard to get. They tell themselves, oh, they'll be back. They always come back. They actually feel in control, thinking it's only a matter of time before you reach out with one more apology. But what they don't realize, your silence isn't a pause. It's the final answer to a question they've been testing for too long. Stage 2, doubt. Days pass. Weeks pass. You're still silent. They start checking your social media. They start rereading old messages. They start replaying every memory, wondering if they ever really knew you at all. They wanted you to chase them. Because as long as you're chasing, they don't have to feel the weight of what they've lost. But now, they start to question everything. Wait, what if they're not playing a game? What if they're actually moving on? What if they never needed me at all? And that doubt, that's what eats away at them day after day. Stage 3, obsession. The moment they realize you're not chasing them is the moment they start chasing you. They start testing you, liking old posts, watching your stories, sending accidental texts. But you've already moved on because silence wasn't strategy for you. It was your power. Part 3, how silence rebuilds your self-worth. Here's the truth. The greatest power in silence isn't just what it does to them. It's what it does for you. Because every second you stay silent, you prove to yourself that you don't need their validation. You don't need closure. You don't need them to recognize your worth. Because your worth was never in their hands to begin with. And that's when the real transformation happens. The moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop fighting for people who wouldn't fight for you, is the moment you step into the most powerful version of yourself. A version that no longer begs to be seen. A version that no longer pleads to be understood. A version that doesn't need anyone to validate their worth. Because real strength, real confidence, real self-love, it isn't found in someone else's words. It's found in your silence. Final message. Your silence is your power. So here's what I want you to do. Drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence is my power. Because when you finally learn how to walk away without a fight, that's the day they realize they lost someone they never deserved. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever used silence as your power? What was the reaction? If this video helped you, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, stay silent, and watch your power rise. Hey, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel and lets you know when I upload more content like this. Now, let's get back to the video. The power of silence, reclaiming yourself. 1. Why silence speaks louder than words. Days pass, then weeks. They expected a message, but it never comes. That's when curiosity turns into obsession. They start checking your social media, hoping to see signs that you're still hurting. A sad quote, a breakup song, a message that hints at pain. But what they find is nothing. No sadness, no anger, no reaction at all. And that silence, it eats them alive. The human mind hates not knowing. When people can't figure you out, their imagination creates stories, often worse than reality. They start to wonder, are they really over me? Did I even matter? At first, they test you, liking an old picture, posting something they know will get your attention, try to make you react. But when you don't take the bait, frustration turns to fear. Fear that you're truly moving on. Fear that someone else is replacing what they once took for granted. The more time passes, the more their mind tortures them with questions. They thought your silence meant weakness. But now, they're realizing maybe they were the weak ones all along. Because if you truly love them, why is it so easy for you to let go? And then comes the final stage, regret. They start replaying every memory. The times you forgave them, the times you fought for them, the nights you cried over them. But now, you're no longer there to remind them of your worth. They'll never admit how much your silence is breaking them. Their pride won't allow it. They'll act unbothered, pretend they've moved on. But inside, they're drowning in the regret of losing someone who would have done anything for them. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove a point. Your silence is doing all the talking. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose silence because I choose myself. 2. How silence reprograms their mind. Silence isn't just hurting them. It's changing how they see you. When someone walks away, they expect you to chase them. They expect proof that they mattered. But when you disappear without a fight, their entire perception of you falls apart. At first, they believed you would always be there, waiting, that they could leave and still have a piece of you. But silence strips them of that illusion. Every time they check their phone and see nothing, doubt creeps in. Maybe you weren't as weak as they thought. Maybe you were never chasing them. You were choosing them. And now, with you gone, they're left wondering, did I ever really have them at all? The human mind can't handle unanswered questions. So they start rewriting the story in their head. They used to think they were special to you. Now, they question if they were just another chapter in your life. The more silence you give, the louder their doubts become. And the worst part, they'll never know the answer. Your silence isn't a punishment. It's a mirror. You're not trying to hurt them. You're simply showing them what life feels like without your energy feeding their ego. And the longer you stay silent, the more valuable your absence becomes. Seneca once said, "The greatest revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Your silence is a revenge. It's proof that you've outgrown them. 3. Keeping your silence powerful. The hardest part of silence isn't starting. It's staying silent when your heart is screaming to explain. The mind craves closure. The ego craves validation. But the moment you break your silence to prove a point, you hand your power right back to them. Silence only holds power if you're growing in it. This is your season to rebuild everything they tried to break. Start working out. Start journaling. Rediscover the version of yourself that existed before they made you feel small. Every morning you choose self-discipline over self-pity. You silently tell them, "I'm not coming back." Every time you heal a part of yourself they took for granted, you're proving that their absence isn't your weakness. It's your opportunity. Don't just disappear. Transform. The most powerful silence is the one that forces them to question if they ever really knew you at all. Let them see your glow without hearing a single word from you. Zeno once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more than we speak." Your silence is teaching them a lesson louder than any explanation ever could. For when will they break? They'll break the moment they realize you're not waiting for them anymore. Not when they see your silence. Not when they notice you're missing. But when they finally understand you don't care anymore. Because when someone truly moves on, there's no sadness left. No anger. No reaction. Just peace. And peace? That's the one thing they never expected you to find without them. Drop this in the comments. My silence is teaching them what my presence never could. The power of silence. Rebuild, transform, and rise. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is your greatest power. At first, they won't notice. Days will pass, then weeks, and they'll assume you're just upset, waiting for the right moment to reach out. They'll tell themselves you're playing a game, that any day now you'll crack, post something emotional, or send that desperate message. But then, nothing. No sad quotes. No indirect posts. No signs of suffering. And that silence, it will start to consume them. The human mind fears the unknown. When they can't figure out what you're thinking, their imagination fills in the gaps. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe someone else has taken their place. Maybe, just maybe, they were never as important as they thought. That's when frustration kicks in. They'll test you, liking old pictures, posting things to get a reaction, even showing off as if they're thriving. But when you don't respond, that's when the real fear sets in. Because silence is louder than words. 1. Silence breaks their illusions. People expect you to beg. They expect you to hold on, to wait for closure, to chase them for an explanation. But when you go silent, their story falls apart. At first, they'll think you're pretending. But as time goes on, they'll scroll through old messages, replay past conversations, and wonder how the person who once gave them endless chances suddenly gave them none. And that's when they break. Not because you were cruel, not because you sought revenge, but because they realize the door they slammed in your face is now locked forever. 2. Your absence speaks louder than your words. Nothing haunts a person more than someone who had every reason to fight, but chose to walk away instead. At 2 a.m., they'll stare at their phone, debating whether to reach out. But they'll hesitate, because deep down, they know the person they lost isn't waiting anymore. Silence forces them to question everything. Did you ever really need them? Were they really that special? Or were they just another chapter in your life? And the more they question, the more their regret grows. Because silence doesn't just hurt, it rewires their mind. It forces them to see you differently. 3. Silence forces growth. Silence isn't about them. It's about you. This is your season of transformation. While they waste time stalking your social media, you are rebuilding. You are healing. Every day you stay silent, you become stronger. Start working out. Start reading. Start focusing on your goals. Start creating the life you once thought you needed them for. Because silence only holds power if you're growing in it. This isn't about making them miss you. It's about making them completely irrelevant to your future. For when will they break? They'll break when they realize you're not coming back. Not when you're silent for a few days. Not when you ignore a few messages. But when they finally understand your silence is not a reaction. It's a decision. They'll break when they realize the person they hurt no longer exists. At first, they'll wait for you. Then they'll watch for signs. Then they'll doubt themselves. And finally, regret will hit like a storm they can't escape. By the time they reach out, they won't be contacting the person they once knew. They'll be reaching out to the new version of you. The one who no longer needs them, no longer waits for closure, and no longer seeks validation. And that version of you, they will never get access to again. 5. The ultimate lesson. Your silence is their regret. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. This is not about proving a point. It's about evolution. Every second you hold your silence, you are breaking the cycle of proving your worth to someone who was never meant to see it. Let them wonder. Let them regret. Let them feel your absence. Because your silence, it is the loudest message you will ever send. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose myself. And if you're ready to turn your silence into power, subscribe, because this is just the beginning of your glow-up journey. The silent comeback. Your silence is not just an absence. It's a comeback in disguise. There is a kind of strength that doesn't need to be announced. A kind of power that doesn't demand attention. A kind of success that doesn't need validation. It's the power of silence. When someone walks away from you, they expect you to chase. They expect you to fight for closure, to cry, to prove you still care. They expect your world to stop. But here's the truth. The moment you stop explaining, you start evolving. 1. Silence turns pain into power. They left? Let them go. They stopped calling? Stop waiting. They expected you to beg? Give them nothing. Because every second you stay silent, you're shifting the power back to where it belongs, to you. At first, they won't notice. They'll assume you're just playing a game. But as time passes and your silence grows, that's when the regret starts to build. They'll scroll through your old messages, realizing they don't recognize this version of you. They'll check your social media, searching for proof that you're still hurting. They'll wait for a sign that you're still hoping for them to come back. But all they'll find is silence. 2. Silence makes them question everything. The human mind can't stand unanswered questions. Did they move on? Did I ever matter? Were they stronger than I thought? Your silence will force them to rewrite the story they told themselves about you. And when they realize that you were never weak, that you were simply choosing them, that's when they'll break. 3. Silence is your glow-up season. Don't just disappear. Transform. While they waste time checking for updates, you will be building a life they can't access, creating success they can't touch, becoming the person they thought you'd never be. Because silence is only powerful when you use it to grow. They thought leaving you would break you. Instead, it became your greatest motivation for the ultimate victory, becoming untouchable. By the time they realize what they lost, they will no longer recognize the person they lost it from. And that's the true power of silence. Not revenge, not punishment, but evolution. The philosopher Seneca once said, "The greatest revenge is to be unlike the one who caused the injury." So let them watch, let them wonder, let them regret, because your silence, it's the foundation of your comeback. If you're ready to turn your silence into strength, comment, "I choose myself." And if you're ready to level up, subscribe, because your greatest chapter is just beginning. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Also, turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon. See you in the next one.